It's me again. I can continue reading from my book, that's 1910. Okay, let's go. Mother Jones and the Fight for Workers' Rights. Dale Featherling. Labor reformers were mostly men, but a handful of women also joined the cause of promoting workers' rights. One combative female, Mary Jones, is so fiercely worked for the labor movement in America that she became known as Mother Jones. Dale Featherling wrote a comprehensive biography of the reformer. The following selection is from his account of Mother Jones's work in West Virginia. Payne and Kevin Creeks were the yin and yang of central West Virginia's Kanawha Valley in 1912. 8 miles apart and separated by a razorback ridge, the two streams each extended southward from the Kanawha River for some 25 miles. Through the cold laden mountains, they carved narrow gorges just wide enough in some spots for railroad tracks and a road. Thanks in part to Mother Jones, the Kanawha Valley, including the two creeks, had been unionized in the 1902 strike. But 2 years later, a brief strike by the Cabin Creek miners caused the union to lose all its organization there. Payne Creek remained a union-based zone. But on Cabin Creek, the operators hired mine guards to prevent organizers from getting another foothold. Along these two streams, the mine soon would spill out many of their 7,500 miners, and in so doing marked the beginning of the state's worst Cold War. Before there would be a truce, scores of men would die violently. A heavy economic loss would be incurred, and Mother Jones would fight and be fought fiercely. Another battle to fight. The aged agitator, now 82 years old, was touring the West and the Pacific Northwest in 1912, aiding striking railway employees and addressing mass meetings. Returning to Denver by the 1st of June, she then went among the copper miners in Butte, Montana, prior to a scheduled speaking tour in San Francisco. But then labor news from West Virginia broke. To the scheduled speaking tour in San Francisco, but then labor news from West Virginia broke, as it did on and off for the next decade and a half, onto the front pages of the nation's newspapers. Now the battle had to be fought all over again, she later wrote, so I tied up all my possessions in a black shawl. I like traveling light, and went immediately to West Virginia. Prompting her urgency was a dispute which had been smoldering particularly since 1907, when coal mine operators in the central competitive field, West Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, reportedly offered financial aid to the UMW, United Mine Workers, for organizing West Virginia. Forced to recognize the Union as early as 1898, the Central operators continued to face competition from the high-grade, cheaply dug West Virginia coal, especially after the opening of the rich Logan Field in southern West Virginia in 1904. The state's coal production rose from 6 million tons in 1888 to 70 million by 1912, and 90% of that was sold in competition with the Central Field operators. A UMW contract with the Kanawha Field operators expired April 1st, 1912. When the mine owners refused to agree to improve upon the old contract, the miners struck on April 18th throughout the Kanawha district, except, of course, for non-union Cabin Creek. For nearly a month, the strike was conducted without violence. Soon, all strike-bound operators came to terms, except those on Payne Creek. They maintained that with unorganized Cabin Creek so near, they could not afford to jeopardize further their competitive position. With the battle lines narrowed to just Paint Creek, the operators there hired mine guards from the Baldwin Phelps Detective Agency in Bluefield. The first assignment of guards arrived May 7th and began bolstering the company's defenses. Violence began in late May and escalated till by July. Miners and guards alternately were attacking one another in army-like battles. The threat of civil war gripped the state, and Mother Jones, who arrived about this time, did little to ease tensions. By the 4th of July, she was reported working night and day, encouraging the miners' resolve. She also may have encouraged no little violence. Addressing strikers in Charleston, she denounced Governor William E. Glasscock for not meeting with it. You can expect no help from such a goddamn dirty coward, she reportedly told him. Whom for modesty's sake we shall call Crystal Peter. But I warn you this, little governor, not unless he rids Paint Creek and Cabin Creek of these goddamn Baldwin Phelps mine guard thugs, there is going to be one hell of a lot of bloodletting in this hills. On another occasion on Cabin Creek, Mother Jones said to have held up a blood-soaked coat discarded by a wounded mine guard. Told the crowd, "This is the first time I ever saw a goddamn mine guard coat decorated to suit me." Then she had the coat cut into pieces and she threw to the audience for lapel emblems. West Virginia explodes. For weeks the carnage grew in pitch. More than once the miners attacked Mucklow, 5 miles up Paint Creek, where the guards had built a fort complete with a machine gun, where one of the largest colliers was headquartered. One observer noted that when Mother Jones addressed the miners, she encouraged them to keep up the shooting and keep up the trouble. If she found some weak-kneed fellow who were hanging around the tent, she went after and drove him off into the mountains. In one instance, she was heard to say, "Get your guns, you cowardly sons of bees, and get into the woods." Viewing the Paint Creek operators recalcitrant as an attempt to drive a wedge into the state's slender Union strength, Mother Jones again veered close to an outright call to violence during the August 1st meeting on the Charleston levee. I'm not going to say to you, don't molest the operators, she stated. It is they who hire the dogs to shoot you. Applause! I am not asking you to do it, but if he is going to oppress you, deal with him. Socialist editor IWW leader Ralph Chaplin was on the same program that day with Mother Jones, and he later described her speech. She might have been any coal miner's wife ablaze with righteous fury when her brew was in danger. Her voice shrilled and she shook her fists at the coal operators, the mine guards, the union officials. She prayed and cursed and pleaded, raising her clenched and trembling hands, asking heaven to bear witness. She wore long, very full skirts and a black shawl and a tiny bonnet bowed up and down, and she harangued the crowd. The miners loved it and laughed. She hooted and he cried as she spoke to them. Sensing their report, Mother Jones grew yet bolder and climbed up on a box in the bed of a wagon. Then she began, "I say to the policeman, get all the ammunition you can. Get all the ammunition, and like what? For one of these days you'll come over with us, and we're going to give the other fellows hell. We are law-abiding citizens. We will destroy no property. We will take no life. But if a fellow comes to my home and outrages my wife, by the eternal, he will pay the penalty. I will send him to his God in the repair shop." Loud applause, yay! The man who doesn't do it hasn't got a drop of revolutionary blood in his veins. Mother Jones, at least in the early part of this long strike, was not representing the UNW, but only herself. To miners, this seemingly made little difference. Still, an aggressive organizer, she did not always adhere to the policy of waiting for optimal opportunity. She told one UNW organizer to stop playing preacher and telling the miners that silly trash about justice and justice eventually righting all wrongs. And at one point when she could not legally organize a local because she did not have a copy of the UNW ritual, she retorted, "The ritual? Hell, I'll make one up!" The Union, by late July, turned its attention toward persuading Cabin Creek's miners to join the walkout. But by setting up guard stations at strategic spots, the operators have made Cabin Creek virtually inaccessible. In a counter move, Mother Jones scheduled an August 6th speech at Eskdale, a free city within the Cabin Creek territory. As one might put it, the only thing beautiful about Eskdale was its name. It was smoky, sooty, and grimy, but it was also incorporated and thus became a refuge for miners above Eskdale who had been assaulted or driven. Beyond it was a no man's land, and organizers so feared the company gunmen beyond the town that Union headquarters could not produce a single volunteer to venture past Eskdale on an organizing foray. Presiding Mother Jones's expeditions, Union brothers beseeched the Cabin Creek men in the name of the outraged women and murdered miners of Paint Creek to lay down your tools and join your striking brothers. Mother Jones's exhortations apparently were effective. Charles Cabell, general manager of the nearby Carbon Coal Company, later told Congregational investigators that the men on Cabin Creek were peaceful and content until Mother Jones began holding her meetings. After one such August meeting, his men came back very much exercised over the outlook and worried, Cabell said. Some of them left the next day. After that time, there was a great deal of unrest among our men from that time on. The legend grows, but the first Eskdale meeting was successful in persuading the miners to unite. The next one led to further embellishment of the legend of Mother Jones. When the second meeting broke up on August 13th, someone suggested a march to the Red Warrior mining camp in the no man's land. Leading the marchers in a buggy, Mother Jones soon ran into a group of 50 or more mine guards with a machine gun pointing at the advancing column. As one miner recalled, Mother Jones drove her rig up to the gun emplacement, and a miner helped her step down. She surveyed the scene with a critical eye and walked straight up to the muzzle of one of the machine guns, and patting the muzzle, other gun said to the gunman behind her, "Listen here, you. Listen here. You fire. Listen here, you. You fire one shot here today, and there are 800 men in those hills," pointing to the almost inaccessible hills to the east, "who will not leave one of your gang alive." The hoary bluff worked. Mother Jones later admitted that if there were miners up in those hills, she did not know about them. The basis of some controversy and perhaps hyperbole, the machine gun incident seemed to grow in Mother Jones's memory. "I realized that we were up against it," she confided, "and something had to be done to save the lives of these poor wretches, so I pulled the dramatic stuff on them thoughts. Oh, how they shook in their boots. And while they were shaking in their boots, I held my meeting and organized the miners who had congregated to hear me." The machine gun operator J.H. Mayfield, however, led to our congressional subcommittee that Mother Jones got out of the buggy and talked quietly with the guards. She told us that when she left Eskdale, that these fellows with the guns followed her up there. Hot-headed, she told us she didn't want no trouble. At any rate, a tale was born, and Mother Jones was allowed to continue to Red Warrior alone while the crowd had to return to Eskdale. The joining of the Cabin Creek miners with the strike, whether done out of sympathy or coercion, was a blow to the operators. Cabell, who had about 1,000 employees, distributed questionnaires to his men when it was obvious that the UNW was going to seek to proselytize them. The results, he claimed, showed that 90 to 95% of the workers were satisfied with conditions. One contemporary historian said, "Through distortion of fact, the union agitator has so aroused the passion of the miners that men who were usually cool-headed threw all self-restraint to the wind and followed these leaders with the blind faith of children. A woman's place, but not hers." While Mother Jones spent most of her time away from her home and children, she did not believe that other females should be as active. Therefore, she opposed the suffrage movement, as this excerpt from Linda Atkinson's biography makes clear. In no sense of the word am I in favor of women's suffrage, she said. Women already have great responsibility on their shoulders. Home training as a child should be their task, and it is the most beautiful task. It was strange to hear this view from a woman who had lived a decidedly public life, who had urged women to join their husbands on picket lines, who had unionized working women, who had in fact done her best to change an entire culture, and who had not had a home or even a permanent address for over 50 years. It was a traditional view of woman's place, and it would not have been surprising from a woman who had lived a traditional life. But from the famous, and to some people infamous, Mother Jones, such a statement was astonishing. That horrible old woman speaks. 2 days after the machine gun incident, Mother Jones delivered an hour-and-a-half address to a throng of miners gathered on the steps of the Capitol in Charleston. Following several socialist speakers, she demanded an abolition of the mine guards and berated the establishment in a resolute and imaginative speech which claimed the labor movement to be a mandate from God, and stated that the Star of Bethlehem had been a portent of the Industrial Revolution. She pledged that someday the miners would take over the mines, and she poked fun at the operator's wife. They were $5 worth of makeup and have toothbrushes for the dogs, and they said, "Oh, them horrible miners! Oh, that horrible old Mother Jones! That horrible old woman!" she chided. Taking an even harder usual crack at the clergy, Mother Jones said the operators, "Give your missionary women a couple of $100 and they rob you under pretense of giving it to Jesus. Jesus never sees a penny of it and never heard of it. I wish I was God Almighty. I would throw down something some night from heaven and get rid of the whole blood-sucking bunch." Laughter and applause. Woo! In a stirring climax that moved her audience to both tears and rage, she told them, "And instead of the horrible homes you have got, we will build on their ruins homes for you and your children to live in. The day of oppression will be gone. I will be with you whether true or false. I will be with you at midnight or when the battle rages, when the last bullet ceases, but I will be in my joy," as an old saint said. "O God of the mighty clan, grant that the woman who suffered for you suffered not for a coward, but for a man. God grant the woman who suffered for you suffered not for a coward, but for a fighting man." Then she asked the crowd to pass the hat for miners in the throng who were broke and needed a glass of beer or who could not pay their way back home. Then a man came out of the audience and told Mother Jones, "Here is $10. I will go and borrow more. Shake hands with me, an old union miner. My children are able to take care of themselves, and I'll take care of myself." Fight, right," he said. "I have a good rifle, and I will get more money. If I don't have enough to pay my railroad fare, I will walk. I don't care if this was the last cent I had. I will give it to Mother and go and get some more." Such was the response Mother Jones got to her impassioned and inflammatory speeches during this long and bloody story. As an orator, she was at her peak. Lawrence Lynch, a contemporary writer, stated, "Head and shoulders above all the other agitators in ability and forcefulness stands Mother Jones, the heroine of many similar strikes. Her 80 or more years have not dimmed her eye, weakened the strength of her personality, or tempered the boldness of her language. She is the woman most loved by the miners and most feared by the operators. Her thoughts are expressed in language both picturesque and strange. She knows no fear and is much at home in jail as on the platform. In either situation, she yields a greater power over the mind than does any other agitator." And Fred Mooney of West Virginia might describe her and her techniques with that brand of oracle fire that is only found in those who originate from Irwin. She could permeate a group of strikers with more fight than could any living human being. She fired them with enthusiasm. She burned them with criticism. Then cried with them because of their abuses. The Myers loved, worshipped, and adored her. And well, they might, because there was no night too dark, no danger too great for her to face. If in her judgment her boys needed her, she called them her boys. She chastised them for their cowardice. She criticized them for their ignorance. She said to them, "Get you some books and go into the shade while you are striking. Sit down and read. Educate yourself for the coming conflicts." At the state capitol meeting, Mother Jones presented a demand for the abolition of the mine guard. She exhorted a group of mice to take the document to the governor's office. But Governor Glasscock, a frail former school teacher and lawyer, did little to meet the miners' demands. Upon a journey the Capitol meeting, Mother Jones said she told the miners, "We will protect ourselves and buy every gun in Charleston." She later recalled that they left the meeting peacefully and bought every gun in the hardware stores of Charleston. They took down the old hammerlocks from their cabin walls. Like the Minutemen of New England, they marched up the creeks to their homes with the grimness of the soldiers of the Revolution. The violence continues. By the end of August, shootings were occurring almost every night and sometimes during the day. Assaults, murders, and property destruction were common. The struggle climaxed on September 1st, 1912, when Union miners on the north side of the Kanawha River armed themselves and began crossing the river to help the beleaguered strikers drive out the guards and the miners who were still at work. Estimated at anywhere from 1,500 to 6,000 men, the combined armies massed near the mouth of Cabin Creek. The mine owners quickly imported more than 100 extra guards and recruited every employee who could hold a rifle. In all, about 400 well-armed and determined defenders waited behind breastworks to repel the invaders. A monstrous war was in the making. On September 2nd, Governor Glasscock declared the entire strike zone to be under martial law, and 1,200 militiamen were rushed to the creek, where they will stay for 6 weeks. During the first few days of military occupation, the soldiers seized 1,872 rifles, 556 pistols, 6 machine guns, 2,025,000 rounds of ammunition, 480 blackjacks, as well as daggers, bayonets, and brass knuckles from the two sides. Yet, of the miners, the great majority of them followed Mother Jones' advice and hid their weapons, one observer stated. Despite the martial law, Mother Jones continued to speak with gusto throughout the Kanawha region. At Charleston on September 6th, she castigated the miners as a lot of cowards without enough marrow in your backbone to grease two black cats' tails. If you were a man with a bit of revolutionary blood in you, you wouldn't stand for the Baldwin Guards, would you? She warned against the bad publicity that grew from destruction of Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad trackage. Don't meddle with the track, take care of it, she advised. And if you catch sight of a Baldwin bloodhound, put a bullet through his rotten carcass. Yay! Woo! Throughout the months, she kept up her speeches, and during a talk at Estelle a few days after the imposition of martial law, she was said to have been seized and detained briefly for reading the Declaration of Independence to strikers at a railway depot. On September 21st, she led a protest parade in Charleston, 100 miners, children with banners and a band. Her actions, chronicled closely by socialist magazines and newspapers, won her a growing following not only among West Virginia coal miners, but the metal miners of the West as well. Miners Magazine, the organ of the WFM, said a few years more and Mother Jones would be sleeping in the bosom of Mother Earth. But when the history of the labor movement is written and there is recorded the glad tidings of labor's emancipation, the name of Mother Jones will shed a halo of luster upon every chapter that portrays the struggle of man against the despotism of capitalism. Please rate, comment, and subscribe down below. And if you're on YouTube, please ring that bell notification so you can know when I upload next. And if you're on TikTok, please like and follow my videos. And once we get to 50 followers on TikTok and 50 subscribers on YouTube, then I'm gonna do something special, okay? I'm not gonna tell you because it's gonna be a surprise. So let's get to 50. Woohoo! And please pay for something on eBay and or my car if you can, okay? Bye!